aspirations, the vacuum of self-development, ideals around self-preservation, and so forth. And then we thought, okay, well, at first, actually, by the way, I published a book called Message to a Black Man in Africa. Yes. This was around 2013, the first edition. And the reason behind me publishing such kind of a book is because, just like Kanye was saying earlier, that, growing up with a lot of misconception, miseducation, because this is what happens with little black boys, right? There's what we call racial profiling. Right. So the educational system falls part of the racial profiling. The media, the visuals you see on television, the magazines, the newspaper. Now, if you are racially profiled, which is a PR activity, by the way, to believe that you are inferior, you stems from nothing. Your ancestors were singing and dancing with monkeys long before white people came into Africa. Yeah. So you then feel a sense of inferiority. And besides that, because that's a psychological element that they deal with when they do dehumanization, another element is the fact that there's multi-generational transmission of trauma as a result of colonization and apartheid. So somehow you grew up being depressed, but you don't know this. And then what makes you more depressed is because as a black person, being a masculine, genetically masculine, now you do not have the material to assert the resources and the dominance of your masculinity. So which means there should be somewhere where you have to assert your masculinity. That's why we have black men now who have got toxic masculinity, abusing black women. That's why today you end up having feminism. Right. If they don't do that, you have got to rob somebody. You got to stab someone just trying to feel good about yourself. So, after realizing all of that, I thought, okay, well, let me try to do a book. Now, the book, it must be a redefinition of the black man, the black story that is being told by a black person. I know that in other areas in the African diaspora, in Nigeria, in Egypt, people are writing about African history. But in this particular part of the world, in South Africa, because South Africa is the last country to reach independence, and we can say is one of the most, in terms of psychological dehumanization, we experience the most racism, if I can try to make that claim, around South Africa. So you realize that there are no black authors who actually are non-conventional in trying to bring the discussion around black self-determination, and then the men being the biggest target. There are certain message to black men in Africa is try to restore the man, give him some life, pump life into his empty shell. And then, I've been involved in a couple of campaigns, but people keep saying, no, but I mean, what's next? How can I be part of what you're doing? But read my book. They were like, no, brother, there should be something more. And then that's where we came with a couple of, people on the same page saying, no, we need to have an organized platform. That's when Black Centric Forum came. Right. And then when we came with the platform, the biggest element that we wanted to lay foundation on is that the fact that there's the genetic alignment of blackness in terms of identity. We don't have psychology. For instance, I mean, in race, you need to have what we call race-based common sense. Right. White people's race-based common sense is that you preserve the land, you are on top of the black man. That's why people are setting self-esteem wrongfully. White kids such as Steve Hofmeyer, you see them calling blacks whatever they can because they've got nothing to lose. You don't give them no job. So it's something, just like I said, black people lack that material resources to assert their masculinity much that when you call them to the platform like Black, we have got brothers who are the part of the movement. By the way, up to so far, we've got 3,000 membership. And then you have got people saying, no, my brother, I'll be supporting in other means. I'm not going to come because I'm afraid I'll lose my job. So when we the first thing that we did was, okay, well, psychology. But now we have got whole lot of black people. Old black people, and some are not even willing to come to these discussions anyway. Now we thought, okay, well, let's start with little black minds. And then that's what we initiated campaigns such as the removal of white dolls, because we believe that dolls are psychological objects, and this is the basis of trying to psychologically disorientated little black babies. Much that, just like Kanye, when they grow up, they feel some sense of vacuum when they are not associated with white people. Much that I cannot wait for a black person. Exactly. White people, we can hate them and all of that, but those people are good, man. Black people can never even run a country. So you'll try to understand that besides us speaking in all of these platforms, we also do in business, like you said. We do programs such as Africa Nights. We do programs such as the Black Centric Forum Thought Leadership, which it's a camp. We do it from Friday to Sunday. So Kanye was also part of it in the beginning, and you know, it works. It helps a lot.
Right.
Many people are coming from and say, oh, wow, you've helped me. Now I feel better about the things that I've done. If it's women, I no longer want to wear my weaving, whatever the case is. So another thing that we also do is we focus on the element of reparations. You know, in reparations, there should be an internal process, an internal commitment. So we said we're going to be committed on an internal process for reparations, in which that we're going to do things such as imbizos and all of those programs. Is part of psychosocial rehabilitation of black men and black women. Because sometimes, although, the reason why I think it's necessary even now that there was sister here is because, you know, a black family, the reason why we can never have sustainable black families, black women also somehow don't have material resources to asset their energies. So they end up asserting those to black men. If in a family household in a black community, the woman is not always frustrating the man, it should be the other way around. The man is frustrating the woman, much that it becomes almost impossible to maintain 90% of the family sustainability in black communities, simply because we do not have the means. So yeah, another thing that we do as a movement is we've been writing a couple of reparation submissions to Parliament, which is part of our practical program of action. And another thing that we do recently, you know, is still ongoing, we just only did one, is what we call the shooting range. And as much as it might not seem like it is having an effect in black families, it does, because you see, a man is an institution. So that institution is an institution of self-preservation, an institution of protection, an institution that is supposed to be there for their family. So if you are a man who cannot even, simple things, what happens if we get to be colonized again? When we have to experience our women raped in front of us. So we're trying by all means to have black people, black men participating in this shooting range, and so that just for in case in future something like that happens, they're able to protect our families.
Thank you so much, Maphindani, for giving us an overview of what your organization does. Time flies when we have good conversations, and unfortunately, you know, we're going to be running out of time soon. But before we let you go, can you say, you've mentioned some of the solutions that you think are important for African men. Is there anything you'd like to add, especially when there are people out there sitting? Can they join your organization? What can they do if they are far away from where you operate? Especially to men who are struggling with self-esteem and understand that from what they've heard today, learning more about themselves, learning more about who we are can help them. What can they do?
I think the first element is self-identification. It's very important to identify yourself. Identify your race, your psychology. Work on your psychology, read more books about African history. And not only that, in terms of action, starting from visuals, just like Kanye have said. What I also do is, by the way, they can order, I've just recently published a children's book called The Sanders Wish. If you've got children around the age of 3 to 12, you know, try to get them a book so that they're able to visualize. It's just a normal story, but the characters are black. And we're working on an animation for the very same concept. So bit by bit, now download YouTube videos speaking about African heroes, animation in animation form. And then in joining the movement or trying to participate in our programs, we are now forming chapters. We've got a chapter in Durban. And this weekend we'll be going to Kimberley to form another chapter of the movement. And then there's also a chapter that is being formed in Soweto this very weekend. And then we'll be actually in all 9 provinces by February next year. And then they can also try to visit our website. It will be live by tomorrow at www.blackcentricforum.org. So we will also be having an app for people who are not so web savvy, you know, an app whereby they can be able to interact with us, hopefully on the 1st of November. And then if they want to email us, they can email us at blackcentricforum@gmail.com. On Facebook, it's Black Centric Forum. On Twitter, it's at centric _underscore black.
Wow. Vukulu Sizwe Maphindani from Black Centric Forum, thank you so much for coming through, giving us a light into the work that you do and also the background of it. And thank you for devoting so much time to the rebuilding of our families, the rebuilding of our nation. To see strong African women and men is not something that we can just sit and wish. Like you have just alluded to and explained to us, we need to work hard for it.
Exactly.
People out there, this is Baba Buntu in conversations with Mr. Maphindani on Unstuck, the definition of manhood.